The transmission began at exactly 11:47 p.m., with no government warning, no media preparation, no official channels. Only the haggard face of Marcus Williams, former Secret Service agent assigned to Presidential Protection Detail from 2000 to 2004, appeared on screen. His eyes held the haunted look of a man who had witnessed the unthinkable and carried that burden for over 2 decades. "My name is Marcus Williams," he said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. "For 23 years, I've lived with the knowledge that September 11, 2001 was not a terrorist attack on America. It was an attack by America, orchestrated by the Bush administration, carried out by CIA operatives, and covered up by every institution you've been taught to trust." Behind him sat boxes of classified documents, audio recordings, and photographic evidence that he had secretly collected during his years of White House access. His hands trembled slightly as he held up a manila folder marked, "Operation Pearl Harbor 2, Eyes Only." "Tonight, I break my oath of silence because I can no longer live with the knowledge that nearly 3,000 innocent Americans were murdered by their own government to justify wars that have killed millions more," Williams continued. "What you're about to hear and see will fundamentally change everything you believe about that day, about your government, and about the true nature of American power." Williams began by revealing the most explosive evidence, actual audio recordings from inside the White House during the morning of September 11th, captured by the Secret Service communication system that he had been responsible for monitoring. "At 7:23 a.m., exactly 1 hour and 23 minutes before the first plane hit the North Tower, I recorded this conversation in the Oval Office," Williams said, his voice thick with emotion as he prepared to play audio that would shatter the official narrative forever. The recording was crystal clear, obviously captured by professional surveillance equipment positioned throughout the White House for security purposes. "The Saudi team is in position," came the unmistakable voice of CIA Director George Tenet, speaking to President Bush in what appeared to be an early morning briefing. "Flight instructors confirmed all operatives completed training as scheduled. They believe they're executing a CIA penetration test of airline security." "And they have no idea about the buildings?" asked Bush, his voice carrying none of the confusion or surprise that Americans would see on television hours later. "None whatsoever," replied Tenet. "They think they're hijacking planes for prisoner exchanges. The controlled demolitions will happen exactly 17 minutes after impact, giving us maximum visual impact for the cameras." Williams paused the recording, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. "Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the President of the United States and the CIA Director discussing the controlled demolition of the World Trade Center towers more than an hour before the first hijacked plane took off." The second recording revealed the true scope of what the Bush administration called Operation Pearl Harbor 2, a reference to the December 7, 1941 attack that brought America into World War II. "Phase 1 commences at 8:46 with North Tower impact," detailed Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld during what appeared to be a final operational briefing. "Phase 2 follows at 9:03 with South Tower impact. Phase 3 initiates controlled demolition of both towers at precisely 10 o'clock and 10:28 to ensure complete structural failure." "What about Building 7?" asked Vice President Dick Cheney. "Building 7 demolition proceeds at 5:20 p.m. after we've evacuated all essential personnel," replied Rumsfeld. "We've pre-positioned explosives throughout the structure. The collapse will destroy all evidence of our coordination with the Saudi operatives." Williams revealed that Building 7 housed the CIA's Covert Operations Command Center, where the agency had been coordinating with Saudi intelligence for months to recruit and train the hijackers who believed they were participating in a penetration test of American airport security. "The hijackers thought they were working for the CIA, not against America," Williams explained. "They had been told this was a training exercise to test airline vulnerabilities. They had no idea that the planes would actually crash, or that thousands of people would die." Perhaps most shocking were the recordings that revealed the truth about what happened at the Pentagon. Williams played audio that proved no hijacked airliner had ever crashed into the building. "Missile launch confirmed from Andrews Air Force Base," reported a voice identified as Joint Chiefs Chairman Hugh Shelton. Impact trajectory will match Boeing's 757 approach angle. Debris teams standing by to place airline wreckage. Casualty count? Asked Bush. We've evacuated the renovated section where impact will occur, replied Shelton. Estimated casualties limited to 125 personnel, mostly contractors without security clearances. Acceptable losses for operational security. Williams revealed that the Pentagon had been struck by a cruise missile fired from Andrews Air Force Base, with airline debris subsequently planted to support the hijacked plane narrative. The hijacked Flight 77 had actually been landed at a military base, with passengers and crew eliminated to prevent witnesses. The Pentagon attack was necessary to eliminate evidence, Williams explained. The renovated section that was hit contained financial records showing $2.3 trillion in missing Pentagon funds that Secretary Rumsfeld had announced the day before. Those records could have exposed the funding sources for Operation Pearl Harbor II. The recordings revealed extensive coordination between the Bush administration and Saudi intelligence services, with Crown Prince Bandar bin Sultan personally overseeing the recruitment and handling of the hijacker operatives. Prince Bandar has delivered 15 Saudi nationals trained by their intelligence services, reported CIA Deputy Director John McLaughlin during a pre-operational briefing. They've been told this is a joint training exercise to test American aviation security in preparation for a real al-Qaeda attack. And their handler? Asked Bush. Mohammed Atta has been working with our Prague station for 2 years, replied McLaughlin. He believes he's a CIA asset infiltrating terrorist cells. He has no idea he's being used to lead the operation that will justify our Middle East interventions. The recordings revealed that the Bush administration had been planning the false flag attack since 1999, with Saudi Arabia providing operatives who could be credibly blamed for terrorism while actually believing they were working to prevent it. The beauty of the operation, explained CIA Operations Director Jim Pavitt in another recording, is that the Saudis provide perfect patsies who genuinely believe they're serving Western intelligence. When they die in the crashes, they take the secret with them. Williams then revealed the most technically damning evidence. Detailed recordings of the controlled demolition planning for all 3 World Trade Center buildings that collapsed on September 11. Explosive charges have been placed throughout all 3 structures over the past 6 months, reported a voice identified as Controlled Demolition Incorporated President Mark Loiseau during a White House briefing in August 2001. Thermite cutting charges on support columns, conventional explosives for floor-by-floor progression, radio-controlled detonation systems isolated from any commercial frequencies. Detection risk? Asked Cheney. Minimal, replied Loiseau. We've coordinated with building security to classify the work as elevator modernization. The charges are undetectable unless specifically searched for, and we control the investigation protocols. The recordings revealed that the controlled demolition had been planned for months, with explosives planted during supposed elevator maintenance work conducted by CIA front companies with legitimate building access. Tower 7 is the key, explained Loiseau in another segment. It houses our operational command center, financial records, and all evidence of Saudi coordination. Complete demolition ensures no forensic evidence survives. Williams revealed recordings that exposed how the Bush administration had pre-coordinated with major media outlets to control the narrative from the moment the attacks began. CNN and Fox have agreed to our talking points, reported White House Communications Director Karen Hughes during a September 10 evening briefing. Initial reports will focus on Islamic terrorism, Osama bin Laden connections, and the need for military response. No network will mention controlled demolition or raise questions about structural engineering. What about independent journalists? Asked Karl Rove. We've identified the problematic voices, replied Hughes. Access gets restricted, sources get redirected, and any conspiracy theories get labeled as unpatriotic. We've learned from Oklahoma City that narrative control in the first 48 hours determines public perception permanently. The recordings revealed that several prominent journalists had been briefed on the administration's preferred storylines hours before the attacks occurred, with pre-written reports ready for broadcast as soon as the towers fell. The audio evidence exposed the financial incentives driving the false flag operation, with recordings detailing how specific corporations and individuals positioned themselves to profit from post-9/11 military contracts and legislation. Halliburton projections show $400 billion in potential contracts over the next decade if we can justify permanent Middle East presence, explained a voice identified as company CEO Dick Cheney during a private dinner with Bush in July 2001. Defense contractors have committed to $200 million in campaign contributions for the 2004 election cycle in exchange for guaranteed contract awards. And the airline industry? Asked Bush. They'll take initial losses, but government bailouts will more than compensate, replied Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill. Plus, enhanced security contracts will create permanent revenue streams. We estimate $50 billion annually in new homeland security spending. The recordings revealed that dozens of major corporations had advanced knowledge of the attacks and had positioned themselves to profit from the aftermath, including defense contractors, surveillance technology companies, and private security firms. Williams revealed that the 2001 anthrax attacks were also part of the false flag operation, designed to extend public fear and justify expanded domestic surveillance powers. Anthrax deployment begins 1 week after the WTC operation, detailed FBI Deputy Director Thomas Pickard during a late August 2001 briefing. We've identified targets in media and Congress who might resist our legislative agenda. The attacks will provide additional justification for the Patriot Act. Source of the anthrax? Asked Attorney General John Ashcroft. Fort Detrick Biological Warfare Laboratory, replied Pickard. Same strain used in our bioweapons research program. We'll blame it on Al-Qaeda connections while using it to eliminate opposition voices. The recordings revealed that the anthrax used in the attacks came from U.S. military biological weapons research, with letters sent to specific journalists and congressmen who had been identified as potential obstacles to the administration's post-9/11 agenda. Perhaps most damning were recordings that revealed extensive insider trading by Bush administration officials and their associates in the days before September 11th. Put options on American and United Airlines are positioned, reported Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Harvey Pitt during a September 6 White House meeting. Total positions exceed 50 million. Profit projections assume 70 to 80% stock price decline following the attacks. Traceability? Asked Bush. Routed through CIA proprietary accounts and Saudi intelligence fronts, replied Pitt. Impossible to trace back to administration officials. We estimate $200 million in profits from advanced positioning. Williams revealed that the unusual trading patterns detected before September 11th had been deliberately created by CIA financial operatives working on behalf of Bush administration officials who knew the exact timing and impact of the planned attacks. The recordings exposed how the Bush administration manipulated Congress into passing the Patriot Act by using the fear generated by the false flag attacks. The Patriot Act was written in 1995, revealed Justice Department lawyer John Yoo during an October 2001 briefing. We've been waiting 6 years for a crisis large enough to justify its passage. September 11th provides perfect cover for surveillance powers that Congress would never approve under normal circumstances. Opposition concerns? Asked Ashcroft. Anyone who questions the legislation gets labeled as soft on terrorism, replied Yu. We've made opposition politically toxic. The anthrax attacks on Capitol Hill ensure that congressmen understand the consequences of resistance. The recordings revealed that the Patriot Act had been pre-written years before September 11th, with the false flag attacks serving as the justification needed to implement a domestic surveillance state that had been planned since the 1990s. Williams revealed recordings that showed how the Bush administration deceived international allies about the true nature of the September 11th attacks. Tony Blair will receive sanitized intelligence briefings, explained CIA Director Tenet during a conversation with Bush about coordinating with British intelligence. He'll be told we have evidence of Al-Qaeda planning, but not our role in facilitating the operation. His genuine shock will provide credibility for our international coalition. And other allies? Asked Bush. They'll receive even less information, replied Secretary of State Colin Powell. The key is maintaining plausible deniability while securing their cooperation for military operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. The recordings revealed that even America's closest allies had been kept in the dark about the false flag nature of the attacks, with their genuine belief in the terrorist narrative used to legitimize international support for subsequent wars. Perhaps most heartbreaking were recordings that revealed how the Bush administration cynically manipulated the families of 9/11 victims to prevent them from pursuing independent investigations. "The compensation fund eliminates our legal liability," explained White House counsel Alberto Gonzales during a discussion about the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. "Families who accept payments waive their right to sue the government or demand independent investigations." "What about holdouts?" asked Bush. "We apply pressure through grief counselors, social workers, and financial advisors," replied Gonzales. "Most families are too traumatized to pursue complex legal action. The few who resist get isolated and discredited." Williams revealed that the 9/11 Commission had been carefully constructed to prevent any real investigation, with commissioners selected based on their willingness to accept predetermined conclusions rather than their investigative capabilities. The recordings exposed a systematic campaign to identify and eliminate potential whistleblowers who might expose the truth about the false flag operation. "We've identified 47 individuals with direct knowledge of operational details," reported a voice identified as CIA Counterintelligence Chief James Jesus Angleton, Jr., 23, have been reassigned to overseas stations. 15 have accepted enhanced pension packages in exchange for silence agreements, and 9 require permanent solutions. "Define permanent solutions," said Bush. "Accidents, suicides, heart attacks," replied Angleton. "Methods that don't raise suspicion but ensure silence. We've established protocols based on our experience with JFK witnesses." Williams revealed that dozens of potential witnesses had died under suspicious circumstances in the months following 9/11, including air traffic controllers, FBI agents, and structural engineers who might have exposed inconsistencies in the official narrative. The final set of recordings revealed that September 11th was designed as the foundation for a multi-decade transformation of American society into a surveillance state with permanent war powers. 9/11 gives us justification for everything we've wanted to do since the Cold War ended, explained Dick Cheney during a post-attack planning session. Domestic surveillance, preemptive warfare, detention without trial, torture authorization. The American people will accept anything if they're scared enough. "Duration of the emergency powers?" asked Bush. "Permanent," replied Cheney. "We'll create new threats as needed. The war on terror has no geographic boundaries and no endpoint. It's the perfect pretext for unlimited executive power." The recordings revealed that the Bush administration viewed 9/11 as an opportunity to fundamentally transform the American political system, using fear to justify powers that would have been unthinkable before the attacks. Williams concluded his presentation by revealing that the 9/11 cover-up continues to this day, with current government officials actively suppressing evidence that could expose the truth. "Every administration since Bush has participated in the cover-up," Williams explained. "Obama, Trump, Biden, they all know the truth, but they also know that revealing it would destroy public faith in American institutions entirely." He revealed that classified documents related to 9/11 continue to be suppressed not because they would embarrass foreign allies, but because they would prove beyond doubt that the attacks were an inside job orchestrated by the highest levels of the American government. The 28 pages that were finally released were heavily redacted decoys, Williams disclosed. The real evidence remains buried in classified vaults, protected by officials who know that the truth would trigger a revolution. As his broadcast neared its end, Williams made his most explosive claim, that he possessed a recording of George W. Bush explicitly confessing to orchestrating the September 11th attacks. "This recording was made in the Oval Office on September 12, 2001, Williams said, his voice breaking with emotion. "It captures President Bush admitting to senior staff that the operation had succeeded beyond their expectations. The final recording was brief but devastating. Yesterday was perfect," came Bush's voice, clear and unmistakable. The towers came down exactly as planned. The Pentagon strike eliminated the financial records, and the American people are terrified enough to support anything we ask for. Dick, you were right. This was better than Pearl Harbor. Casualties were higher than projected, replied Cheney's voice. Acceptable losses, said Bush dismissively. The fear factor is proportional to the body count. 3,000 dead Americans is a small price to pay for unlimited war powers and Middle East oil control. Williams concluded his broadcast with a direct appeal to the American people and a warning about his own safety. I know that releasing this evidence puts my life in immediate danger, he said, staring directly into the camera. The same people who murdered 3,000 Americans on September 11th will not hesitate to kill one more to protect their secret. But I can no longer live with the knowledge that our government committed the greatest act of terrorism in human history against its own people. He called for immediate congressional investigations, special prosecutors, and international war crimes tribunals. If we allow this to remain buried, he warned, we guarantee that future false flag attacks will be even more devastating. The broadcast ended at 2:43 a.m., but its impact would reverberate throughout American society for generations. Within hours, hashtag 9/11 Inside Job was trending globally with over 50 million mentions. Congressional phone lines were overwhelmed with demands for investigations. International allies began questioning their cooperation with American intelligence services. But perhaps most significantly, families of 9/11 victims finally had the evidence they needed to prove that their loved ones had been murdered not by foreign terrorists, but by their own government for the purpose of justifying endless wars and unlimited surveillance powers. Stock markets collapsed as investors realized that the entire war on terror had been based on a lie. Defense contractors faced congressional subpoenas, and somewhere in an undisclosed location, a former Secret Service agent waited to see whether the American people would finally demand justice for the greatest crime in their nation's history. The question now was whether America had the courage to confront the truth about September 11th, or whether the cover-up would continue for another generation, protecting the architects of mass murder who had turned American power against the American people. The evidence was overwhelming, the implications staggering. In less than 3 hours, Marcus Williams had presented proof that September 11, 2001, had been a false flag operation orchestrated by the Bush administration to justify endless wars, unlimited surveillance, and the transformation of America into a militarized surveillance state. The truth about 9/11 was finally out. The only question remaining was, what would America do with that truth?